Greta Thunberg, Empath or Narcissist? Part 5. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. In order to determine what a person is, we look at their behaviour, and in particular, their behaviour over a sustained period of time. One area of a person's life that provides us with insight as to what they may be is with regard to their behaviour concerning the law. An individual who is an habitual law breaker could well be demonstrating a sense of entitlement to behave in the way that they deem appropriate, irrespective of societal norms which form the basis of laws. It may provide us with insight that this is an individual who has no sense of accountability for their behaviours, because accountability would threaten an innate need for control. It may well be that it is an example of haughty and dismissive behaviours. The rules don't apply to me, I can do what I want. It could be the existence of magical thinking, whereby the individual believes that they can do as they please because there can be no consequence for them. That they may believe that they are marked out for special treatment, that they wouldn't be prosecuted. That it may well be the case that it shows grandiosity, that they are an individual that is unaffected by the reach of normal rules, regulations, and laws. In some instances, however, the criminal activity might be such that it could be deemed to be justified on a moral basis, which could demonstrate a considerable moral compass. It might be that the individual regards the breaking of the law as unfortunate but necessary in order to achieve a more important aim. It might, in some instances, be the case that the law concerned is such that it's regarded as an inappropriate and unpopular law, and their breaking of it may well be applauded by many in society or seen as necessary to protest against the inherent unfairness of that law. For instance, were it to be the case that a law were passed in a country which made it acceptable to discriminate against somebody based upon their skin colour, many people around the world would regard that as an inappropriate, unfair, unjust law, and therefore would not regard anybody who failed to comply with it as necessarily showing a sense of entitlement. On the contrary, they could well regard that individual as exhibiting emotional empathy for people affected by the application of the law, and that their rule-breaking and law-breaking is not only appropriate, but necessary. When it comes to Greta Thunberg, she actually has a list of criminal activity. In July 2023, on the 19th of June, she participated in a protest organised by the activist group Ta Tillbaka Framtiden, Reclaim the Future, and this was at Malmö's oil terminal. She and other activists blocked access to the harbour to protest about fossil fuel use, and she refused police orders to leave. The charge levelled against her was disobeying a police order. On July the 24th, at Malmö District Court, she was found guilty and fined approximately $144 plus an additional 100 Swedish crowns to a crime victim fund. She avoided jail despite initial reports suggesting that she might get a possible 6-month sentence in prison. Thunberg's response to this was that she pleaded not guilty on the basis that arguing her actions were justified due to the climate emergency, stating it's absurd that those who act in line with science should pay the price for it. Is this somebody exhibiting a strong moral compass and defying law, or an individual who believes that she should be afforded special treatment, that acts with a sense of entitlement, and doesn't believe that accountability should apply to her? On the 24th of July, just hours after her first conviction, Thunberg rejoined activists from Reclaim the Future to block oil trucks at Malmö harbour again, which led to her forcible removal by police. Does this behaviour again demonstrate the courage of her conviction, Or is it the case that she simply just does as she pleases, irrespective of the fact that she had just been convicted of an unlawful act? The result was she faced another charge, which was disobeying a police order. And in October 2023, a Swedish court found her guilty. She had fines totaling approximately $414. This protest lacked a permit. It disrupted traffic, and thus the charge arose. Thunberg again maintained that her actions were necessary to combat the climate crisis. In March 2024, she was involved in a sit-in protest blocking the entrance to Sweden's parliament and again ignored police orders to disperse. She received a charge of civil disobedience, failure to obey a police order. She was convicted by a Swedish court and was fined approximately $550. She once again pleaded not guilty, citing the climate emergency as justification. In January 2023, Thunberg was detained by German police while protesting the expansion of the Garzweiler 2 coal mine in Lützerath. She was carried away after approaching the mine's edge, but was released after an identity check. No charges were filed and she wasn't arrested. She was only detained briefly. Claims of a staged arrest circulated on X, but German police and journalists denied these, stating the detention was logistical only. Whilst there was no charge on this occasion, she was once again detained as a consequence of undertaking protests. Once again, does this demonstrate an individual who has a significant conviction and, notwithstanding the threat of detainment, arrest and charge, very much believes in her cause because of her emotional empathy for other people affected by the climate emergency? Or is this simply an attention seeker who won't do as she's told and therefore more likely to be a narcissist? On October the 17th, 2023, Thunberg was arrested during a fossil-free London protest outside the Intercontinental Hotel in London, where the Energy Intelligence Forum was held. She and others blocked entrances, breaching Section 14 of the Public Order Act by refusing to move to the pavement. She was charged with a public order offence. She pleaded not guilty at Westminster Magistrates Court on the 15th of November 2023, and a trial was set for February 2024, where she was actually acquitted, along with 4 others, owing to insufficient evidence that the police conditions were lawful. On the 6th of April 2024, she was detained twice during an Extinction Rebellion protest blocking the A12 highway in The Hague to oppose fossil fuel subsidies. She was released both times after brief detentions. On June the 9th, 2025, Israeli forces seized a British flagship, Madeleine, carrying aid to Gaza, detaining Thunberg and other activists from the Freedom Flotilla Coalition. Thunberg claimed in a pre-recorded video that they were intercepted and kidnapped in international waters. Thunberg was deported from Israel, and no criminal charges were reported. This, of course, sparked considerable controversy, with much comment across mainstream and social media, something I'll be returning to in due course. On September the 4th, 2024, Thunberg was arrested for blocking a Danish university entrance, protesting its cooperation with an Israeli university on green technology. There doesn't appear to have been any charge or conviction that followed from this. It's also the case that she's been the subject of misinformation. There were social media posts falsely claiming that Thunberg was booked by Delhi police for tweeting a toolkit supporting India's farmers' protests. Delhi police clarified the investigation targeted the toolkit's creators and not Thunberg, and no charge was filed against her. It would appear that her criminal record stems solely from deliberate acts of civil disobedience, a tactic which she has used to draw attention to the climate crisis. Her fines are somewhat lenient and demonstrate a lenient approach of the Swedish judicial system to protest-related offences, and her acquittal in the UK was also notable. Nevertheless, she has now expanded her focus on issues such as Gaza and farmers' protests, more about that in due course, which has intensified social media speculation and conflict about her. Critics frame her as a provocateur rather than an environmentalist, and is this something that is substantial? whereby she is more interested, subconsciously perhaps, in provoking people because it enables her to assert control and draw fuel, and that she is using the cover of environmentalism and political activism as a means to pursue the prime aims? Or is this simply an individual who is willing to go the extra mile, willing to be arrested, detained, charged, and convicted because she has such a conviction in the cause that she supports, that she is willing to walk the walk as well as talk the talk, that she demonstrates that she actually isn't a narcissist that perhaps might just talk about these things in order to gain support and throw a bit of money around, but she's actually on the front line, whereby her actions back up her words. Certainly, the provision of this information about her criminal activity is useful evidence that could support somebody operating with a sense of entitlement, a lack of accountability, grandiosity, haughtiness, and showing various aspects of the narcissistic dynamic. But also, it might be interpreted as somebody that has this deep-seated conviction in her cause, driven by emotional empathy for others, who is prepared to stand by her words with actions, notwithstanding the consequences to her personally, that she's willing to martyr her financial situation, even though the fines are fairly light and were probably paid by other people, but nevertheless, the fact that she's willing to do this shows that she is a person of substance and conviction. Undoubtedly, you'll share your thoughts in the comment section as we progress through the evidence, as we will turn to another aspect of Greta Thunberg's life in part 6. Join me there.